Chapter 42. The King Kong fist seemed to come alive in Yi Chen's hands. It was able to block all of Yi Jun's kicks. Hard and soft as one yin and yang. This is the highest level of hard and fierce fist arts. Mayor Lin gasped. He had lived for so many years and had seen countless geniuses, but very few of them could reach Yi Chen's level in terms of martial arts. Yi Jun's face darkened. He had already thrown out 11 kicks but still could not hurt Yi Chen at all. Yi Chen's strength was beyond his expectation. For swirling ghost fire. 3 kills. The next 7 kicks could be combined into 2 special attacks. Yi Jun used all of his chi and threw out a deadly attack towards Yi Chen. Right then, Yi Chen felt that he did not have enough martial skills. Excluding his sword arts, he only had one high-rank mortal realm skill, the King Kong fist, and the Tyrant fist, which was way too powerful. With his current level, it would be extremely hard for him to train it, and it might even hurt him. Before I go back, I have to reach the condensing reality realm. Once I become an inner disciple, I will be able to get as many top-rank mortal realm skills as I want. At least I won't be in such an awkward situation like now. Facing the dangerous situation, Yi Chen smiled bitterly. He increased his power to 30% of his peak and threw out 7 punches. Boom 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 boom. Clouds of chi exploded in the field, blowing Yi Chen back a couple of steps. He felt like he was floating on the ground. Looking up, he saw Yi Jun in purple robes like a kite with a broken string, drawing a beautiful arc in the air before landing at the edge of the crowd. Good, did I win beautifully? Only now did Yi Tianhao let out a breath of relief. He exchanged a look with Shen Yuqing and smiled. Yi Batian, who was standing on the side, laughed dryly. He looked at Yi Tang, hoping that his favorite son could help him. On the other side, Yi Xiaomei laughed heartlessly. I knew it. Yi Chen will win. Hearing this, Yi Xian frowned. In that instant, she clearly felt that Yi Chen's strength had doubled, or else he wouldn't have been able to defeat Yi Jun so easily. Yi Chen wins. The third match, Yi Hai versus Yi Ming. Although the third elder was a little surprised, he didn't think much of it. After all, Yi Chen's cultivation was higher than Yi Jun's, so it was only natural that he would win. The battle between Yi Hai and Yi Ming was very intense. Moreover, both of them had the same style. Every move and every technique was ruthless and decisive. They were not sloppy at all. Most of the time, it made people think that they had a grudge against each other and wanted to kill each other even if they had to risk their lives. Yi Ming, if you want to blame someone, blame it on your low cultivation base. Finally, Yi Hai unleashed the strength that he should have. He sent Yi Ming, who was fighting like a cornered beast, flying with 2 consecutive palm strikes. Yi Hai wins. The fourth battle, Yi Xian versus Yi Jin. In the crowd, Yi Jin thought about it and raised his hand. I give up. The third elder nodded and said to the last contestant, Yi Lin, now you can choose your opponent. If you win, you can replace him. If you lose, you will be eliminated. Yi Lin looked at Yi Xian, Yi Tang and Yi Hai and shook his head. He then looked at Yi Chen and shook his head again. Third elder, I give up. He knew that he would not be able to win against the first 3. As for Yi Chen, although he was not a condensing reality realm warrior, but judging from his previous 2 battles, he knew that he would not be able to win against anyone who was below the condensing reality realm. So why bother humiliating himself? He might as well just give up. At this point, he no longer cared about the top 3. Alright. Now there are 4 people left. They are Yi Tang, Yi Chen, Yi Hai and Yi Xian. The first battle will be Yi Tang versus Yi Chen, and the second battle will be Yi Hai versus Yi Xian. The winner will enter the finals and fight against the other winner for the first place of the Yi family gathering. After that, there will be battles for the second and third place. Do you have any objections? The third elder glanced at the 4 people. Including Yi Chen, the 4 people shook their heads. The third elder then said, if that is the case, why don't you all rest for 15 minutes and try to recover your lost Zhan Qi, just in case you run out of Zhan Qi. After he finished talking, he sat down and started to drink from his teacup. In the field, only 4 people looked at each other. More accurately, it was Yi Tang, Yi Hai and Yi Xian who looked at each other. Only Yi Tang glanced at Yi Chen for some reason, as if he was telling him that he was going to get it later. The other 2 almost ignored Yi Chen. After all, they were fighting for the first place, and with Yi Chen's peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10 cultivation, he would not be able to interfere. Yi Chan smiled indifferently and went back to his seat to rest. Yi Xian, until now you have only used 30% of your power. Am I right? Yi Hai had already considered Yi Xian as his biggest opponent, so he tried to test her. Yi Xian flicked the hair in front of her forehead and said lightly, "Besides you two, no one else has the right to make me use more than 60% of my power." More than 60%? Don't flatter yourself. After I defeat Yi Chan, I will show you the Northern Snow Martial Academy's Blizzard Sword Art. Yi Tang sneered. Yi Xian turned around and walked back to her seat, leaving behind a sentence. I have seen a lot of geniuses in the Emerald Martial Palace, such as the head disciple Young Master Emerald, the second disciple Absolute Palm Lu Wuxiang, and the third disciple Sherpatian. Compared to them, you are just a mid-level genius. You do not have the power to challenge those with higher cultivation levels. So, against me you will definitely lose. The finals had not started yet, but Yi Hai could already feel the tension in the air. He was breathing heavily. Up until now, he was not only fighting for the first place, he was also fighting for the sake of fighting. After all, they were all geniuses, but a winner had to be decided. 15 minutes passed quickly. Without the third elder's notice, Yi Chan and Yi Tang had already come to the center of the field and stood 10 meters away from each other. Stop the useless struggle. You are definitely not my opponent. After I beat you, I will still have to beat Yi Xian and Yi Hai. Yi Tang could not wait to fight against Yi Xian. He was not interested in Yi Chen anymore. He just wanted to finish the battle as soon as possible. Yi Chan said, "Being impatient is the biggest taboo for a warrior. You have already lost. Cut the bullshit and lose." Yi Tang activated his Zhan Qi. His white robe fluttered in the air even though there was no wind. A white cold air appeared around his body, causing the temperature to drop drastically. He stomped on the ground and jumped out like a bird. Countless hand blades were thrown towards Yi Chan. 1,000 mountains full of snow. This was a blade attack, but Yi Tang had turned it into a hand blade attack. Although it was not as powerful as before, it was more than enough to deal with warriors below the condensing reality realm. Shoo! Shoo! The air was sliced open instantly. Layers of white hand blades appeared, covering the entire field. Break. His power had been increased to more than 60%. Yi Chan did not back off, he threw out both of his fists continuously. It was like hundreds of arrows shooting out at the same time, like a raging river. It clashed violently against the countless hand blades. All of a sudden, the sound of air exploding could be heard everywhere. The explosions created a strong wind current in the middle of the field, which could easily blow away a fierce tiger. Chapter 43. Yi Tang's expression changed. How is this possible? Although my hand blade's power is not even half of my blade's power, it is still not something a mortal realm warrior can handle. What he did not know was that Yi Chen's physical strength had already exceeded 12,000 pounds. 60% would be more than 7,000 pounds, which was equivalent to the power of 2 or 3 buffaloes running at full speed. Controlling crane capturing hand. Yi Tang's attack changed, his clothes fluttered in the wind. While he was flying, his right hand's 5 fingers were like iron hooks, aiming at Yi Chen's shoulder. At that moment, Yi Chen felt like he was being targeted by a ferocious beast. He knew that he could not let his opponent lock him down, otherwise even if he did not get hurt, he would lose control. Shoo! Activating the Golden Swallow art, Yi Chen's body floated into the air, leaving only a faint shadow where he was standing. Yi Tang tore apart the shadow to vent his anger. He looked up, and suddenly a dot appeared in front of him. It was the sword light. The sharp sword light. It was almost in front of Yi Tang as soon as it appeared. Ah! Yi Tang did not expect his opponent to still have enough energy to fight back, and the first attack was so fast that he could not dodge it. Break it! Yi Tang yelled. His right hand was as white as jade. His 2 fingers clamped together, trying to stop Yi Chen's attack and break the great steel sword. Yi Chen sneered, "In your dreams." The great steel sword's momentum was unstable. Like the moon in the water, the sword light spread out and pointed at Yi Chen a few times. Shoo! A bloody hole appeared on Yi Tang's finger, which was filled with Zhan Qi. Thin blood sputtered out, but it was completely shattered by the sword light, turning into nothingness. Tang Er's freezing ice finger was broken. Yi Baishan's face suddenly changed. He could not believe his eyes. Yi Tianhao and Xin Yuqing were also shocked. Although they knew that Yi Qian was very powerful, but how could he be this powerful? Was he really going to beat Yi Tang? Not good. Yi Tang took a few steps back and pulled out a treasured saber from his back. The saber was 4 feet and 1 inch long and 2 inches and 6 fun wide. Its blade was smooth and shiny, and its whole body was suffused with a chilling yin qi, which proved that this was not an ordinary saber used by ordinary people, but a rare saber, a saber for killing. In fact, this blade was called the Vibrant Snow Blade in the North Snow Martial Academy, and only the inner disciples were allowed to use it. Great snowfall! As soon as the colorful snow saber appeared in his hand, Yi Tang's aura surged. With a wave of his hand, the saber lights that filled the sky rushed towards Yi Chen's position, as if the winter snow had arrived early. Yi Chen gripped his sword with both hands and swung it vigorously. All of the saber lights that were spreading over were shattered and could not advance an inch. This showed how fast and precise Yi Chen's sword swings were. Adding insult to injury, Yi Tang was unforgiving after gaining the upper hand. His saber light contained a threatening frost chi that easily froze the moisture in the air. It was as if he wanted to freeze the entire place. Crack, 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 crack. Just as Yi Chen was about to make a move, cold air suddenly rose from the ground. A thin layer of frost covered the ground, with Yi Tang as the center, forming a semicircle of snow. Retreat! Yi Chen took back his sword aura, tapped his feet on the ground, and his body flew backwards. Yi Chen, it is not bad for you to exchange so many attacks with me. Unfortunately, you are still going to lose. Proud Snow Frost. Yi Tang gripped his saber with both hands and swung it downwards. Chin! The colorful snow blade released a 5-meter-long saber light that sliced through the air, bringing with it an unstoppable aura. It seemed like it was going to cut Yi Chen in half in the next second. Chen, watch out! Xin Yuqing was worried about his son, so he stood up and prepared to help. Yi Batian sneered and pressed his right hand in the air, blocking Xin Yuqing's movement, making it impossible for him to move. Sister, we are in the middle of the competition. Don't be presumptuous. Yi Tianhao couldn't take it anymore. Waves of qi exploded from his body, and he stepped forward with his right foot. The entire VIP stand was blown away and shattered into pieces. The battle was about to start. Guys, wait, the situation has changed. City Lord Lin hurriedly used his qi to protect himself and said to Yi Batian and the other two. Hearing this, the three's attention returned to the battlefield. Yi Tang's saber light cut the air into pieces, and the shockwave left a 3-inch deep mark on the ground. This time Yi Chen is going to lose and he might even die. Almost everyone was thinking the same thing. Facing this horrifying saber light, Yi Chen's body shook, and the blood in his body made a rumbling sound. His aura suddenly increased like an ancient god. Destroy! Shouting, Yi Chen's body didn't move, but his left hand formed a fist and punched out. Crack, 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 crack. The saber light exploded into pieces in the air, and it didn't do anything. What is going on? How can he be so powerful? Yi Xian suddenly stood up and said in disbelief. Yi Hai's face was also very serious as he stared at Yi Chen. Yi Tang's eyes popped out and his movements froze. Mountain collapse. Yi Chen's eyes were as sharp as swords. He leapt forward and arrived 3 steps away from Yi Tang. His great steel sword was placed on Yi Tang's neck. You lost, Yi Chen said lightly. Yi Tang came back to his senses, and he couldn't accept the reality in front of him. His eyes were bloodshot. Impossible, I didn't lose. Die. The colorful snow blade in his hand turned, and he was about to attack. Yi Chen was a little angry. He swung his left hand and slapped away the colorful snow blade in Yi Tang's hand. Then he stepped forward and knocked away Yi Tang's body. Wretch. Puking out a mouthful of blood, Yi Tang fell 10 steps away. Yi Chen won. He actually won. I can't believe that even Yi Tang, who had reached the condensing reality realm, couldn't compete with Yi Chen. How powerful is he? It seems like the first place is going to be very difficult. Indeed, Yi Tang is one of the top 2 geniuses of the Yi family, and he is also a disciple of the North Snow Martial Academy. His power is even more powerful than the older generation of early condensing reality realm warriors. But he still lost to Yi Chen. This is really unexpected. If Yi Chen also reached the condensing reality realm, how powerful would he be? He would definitely be able to defeat all the early Condensing Reality Realm warriors. Even mid-Condensing Reality Realm warriors might not be able to win against him. A cross-realm battle. This is the legendary cross-realm battle. So it is true. The whole place started to boil like boiling water. Seeing Yi Qian beat Yi Tang, no one would think that he did not have the right to be the champion of the family meeting. If there was, then that person must be crazy or blind and could not see the truth. Yi Qian still could not sit down. She remembered that a few months ago, Yi Qian was only a mortal realm stage 6 warrior. But now he had the power to challenge her. It made her feel a little uncomfortable and depressed. She could not explain it with words. If she had to explain it, then it would be that the difference was too big. Bastard, all of you shut up. Hearing the crowd's discussion, Yi Batian let out a roar from the messy VIP seating. His violent chi spread out like a raging river. All of a sudden the crowd was thrown into chaos. Yi Tianhao saw this and shouted angrily, "Yi Batian, what are you doing?" Chapter 44. Trying hard to suppress his anger, Yi Batian glared at Yi Qian and yelled at everyone on the field, "It's a competition, why are you making so much noise? Quiet down." Hearing him, the whole field went silent. No one dared to provoke Yi Batian, who was in a rage. Not to mention the fact that he was an inner master of the Purple Sun Martial School. He was also a late-class Bingyuan realm martial artist. He was one of the most powerful people in the Yi family and even in the Luo city. In other words, Yi Batian could shake the entire Luo city with a single stomp. Yi Tianhao let out a sigh of relief and said to the servant next to him, "Bring another VIP seat here." Yes. The few servants left with their heads lowered. Mayor Lin saw the situation was a bit awkward. He smiled bitterly to Yi Tianhao and said, "Leader Yi, I didn't expect your son to have hidden so much, it really surprised me. Chaner just came back a couple of days ago, I don't know much about his power." Yi Tianhao was full of pride, as if he had just eaten honey. On this true spirit continent, besides personal power, having a good younger generation was something that everyone dreamed of, especially for the big families or martial institutions, since the younger generation disciples were not talented enough. If the younger generation did not have enough talent, then the family would fall sooner or later. But if there were more geniuses in the younger generation, the whole family would continue to prosper forever, and could even lead the family to the next level. Before, Yi Tianhao had already given up on this idea, but now it was rekindled and it was getting more and more intense, making him more energetic. Yi Batian said in a gloomy tone, "At such a young age, he is already so cunning. What will happen when he grows up?" "Yi Tianhao, you have taught your son well." Yi Tianhao sneered. "Winning and losing are normal for warriors. You can't just let your son win and my son lose, can you? To do such a dirty thing just to win, forgive me for being honest, he will never be able to achieve anything in the future. Let's wait and see." The two had been fighting against each other for a long time. Ever since they were young, they had never liked each other and would often fight to the death. Later, when Yi Tianhao became the leader of the Yi family, and Yi Batian was promoted in the Purple Sun Martial School, the fight had finally calmed down a bit, and was no longer as intense as before. On the judge's seat, the third elder was still in a daze for a long time. It wasn't until the elder next to him patted him that he came back to his senses and announced loudly, "Yi Qian wins." The next battle, Yi Hai versus Yi Xian. Sitting down, the third elder sighed. "What an amazing junior. Yi Tianhao has given birth to a good son. Isn't that right?" Beating Yi Tang, who is at the early Condensing Reality Realm, with only the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10, is even more difficult than a normal cross-realm battle. "I really don't know how he did it." The second elder stared at Yi Qian, as if he was trying to see through him. The great elder, who was sitting in the middle, reminded the two of them, "It's fine to talk about it in front of me, but don't ever mention it to Yi Batian. Of course we know that. The battle has started. I wonder if there will be any surprises after this." In the middle of the field, Yi Hai and Yi Xian tried their best to calm down. After a while, they both raised their heads and stared at each other. "Within 100 attacks you will lose," Yi Xian said lightly with her hand on the hilt of her sword. Yi Hai laughed. "I didn't expect that I would be able to last more than 100 attacks from you. Not bad, but I want to last more than 300 attacks. What do you think? Try me then." "Chin." Taking out her sword, Yi Xian's feet touched the ground. While she was flying, the long sword in her hand shone with starlight, covering all of Yi Hai's major meridians. Good sword art, but it is not enough, Yi Hai said proudly. The blade on his back automatically came out of its scabbard and landed in his hand. If you looked closely, you would see that the blade was covered in blood, as if it had been soaked in human blood when it was made. Blood Blade 8. The blood-red blade light danced in the air surrounding Yi Hai. From time to time, one or two blade lights would fly out and attack Yi Xian. Ding ding ding. Yi Xian was not Yi Tang. She had already stabilized her Zhenqi and made a huge step forward, reaching the peak of the early condensing reality realm. Her Zhenqi was rich and powerful. No matter how tight Yi Hai's defense was, no matter how strong his attacks were, he could not stop her from moving forward. The sword light penetrated into the blade light, and the clothes on Yi Hai's shoulder suddenly split open. Damn! Yi Hai frowned. The moment he jumped back, he threw out a sword attack. Shoo! A blade light sliced through the air, flying towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian sneered. Her left hand was covered in a layer of colored glaze, and she shattered the blade light with one palm attack. At the same time, her right hand shook the long sword, and the sky was filled with starlight, dazzling Yi Hai's eyes. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 10 steps. Yi Hai backed out for a whole 10 steps before he could get rid of the power. He was a bit shocked. Yi Xian's power was even higher than he had expected. If it were not for the ace attacks that his master had taught him, he would not be able to compete with her. Even so, his chance of winning was less than 60%. There was no other way. Yi Hai took a deep breath and his robe expanded. Broken Mountain River. He threw out a blade attack, and the air rippled like water. The heavy qi was like a mountain, pressing down on Yi Xian. The VIP seats had been changed, and Yi Tianhao's eyes brightened. That is the Broken Mountain Blade Art, the famous skill of the Broken Mountain Blade Art. No, it should be the simplified version of the Broken Mountain Blade Art. I wonder what Yi Xian can do. City Lord Lin nodded. The Broken Mountain Guest's Broken Mountain Blade technique is rare even in large sections. With one blade, he can even split a small mountain in half. Facing Yi Hai's sudden attack, Yi Xian's expression did not change. She switched the long sword to her left hand, and her right hand's index and middle fingers touched the blade. To be able to force me to use this skill, you are already very impressive. Shoo! As Yi Xian's fingers slid along the blade, a sharp starlight suddenly shot out and smashed onto Yi Hai's blade light. Then the second, the third boom. Boom! Boom! Like fireworks, Yi Hai's body had completely disappeared, and no one knew what had happened. The next second, the fireworks were blown away, and Yi Hai jumped out, laughing. That's the 108th attack already, Yi Xian said coldly. No matter what the Broken Mountain Blade taught you, you are no match for me. What she had just performed was a low-rank Earthrealm sword art, the Star Sword spell. Of course, it was only the first half. The second half could only be trained by the core disciples. The reason why she was chosen was because she was talented enough, and she was considered one of the top geniuses in the Emerald Martial Palace. Otherwise, even an inner disciple would not be able to learn it. Words are no proof. Take my broken sun and moon, Yi Hai shouted, and his blood-red long blade was thrown out with an aura that could cover the sun. Yi Xian frowned, and the speed of her fingers slid twice as fast. Countless starlight turned into sharp blades and shot out like lightning. Yi Hai's cultivation was lower than Yi Xian's after all, and his blade art was not as good as Yi Xian's as well. After a while, his blade stopped moving, and his Zhenqi was a little messed up. He was hit in the chest by a starlight, and he puked out a mouthful of blood. Outside of the stage, Yi Chan was a little surprised. Yi Xian's power was indeed immeasurable, and she still had some power left. No wonder she looked so arrogant. After all, she had a trump card. Chapter 45. Yi Hai lost. It seems like only that Yi Chan can compete with Yi Xian among the younger generation. To be honest, I don't think Yi Chan will win. It is not because he is not as powerful as Yi Xian, but because he cannot attack from afar. You saw Yi Xian's sword art just now. It was endless. He could not even get close to her. You are right, but Yi Chan might still have some hidden cards. Let's just keep watching. Yeah, it is still too early to tell. All of the important people from the Luo city who came to watch the battle started to discuss among themselves. On the judge's seat, the third master nodded with approval. With this girl in the Yi family, even if they could not make it to the next level, they would not fall. Yixian won. The last battle will be the finals. The winner will get a low-rank storage ring, 100 low-rank soul stones, and 10,000 gold. Yixian Yichan, I hope you two will try your best in the upcoming battles. Of course, the second and third place will not get a low-rank storage ring, but the soul stones and gold will be the same. Let's take a break for 15 minutes. 100 low-rank soul stones, how could it be so little? Yichun was a bit confused. In fact, Yichun thought that since the deceased senior had left behind more than 10,000 low-rank soul stones, as one of the top 8 families, the Yi family must have even more. Indeed, the Yi family's low-rank soul stones were counted in the tens of thousands, but there were more than 600 warriors in the Yi family, and more than 300 condensing reality realm warriors. Even if each of them only used 100 low-rank soul stones per year, it would still cost them 30,000 soul stones, which was a huge amount, enough to make a normal family go bankrupt in a few years. Moreover, an early condensing reality realm warrior's consumption rate was 1 soul stone every 5 days, which meant that they would only need 70 soul stones a year. Even if they had more, they would only be used for other purposes, and would no longer be useful for their own cultivation. Therefore, the reward of 100 low-rank soul stones was made after careful consideration. As for the 10,000 taels of gold, it wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a small amount either. In Yi Chen's memory, his father, Yi Tianhao, had no more than 100,000 taels of gold. Of course, as the head of the Yi family, he didn't need to spend his own money. Everything was covered by the Yi family, such as buying medicinal pellets, weapons, or secret manuals. However, if there were other private matters, he would have to pay for them himself. Off the field, Yixian took out a low-rank soul stone and tried to recover her lost Zhanqi. As her Zhanqi was getting stronger and stronger, Yixian looked at Yichan and thought to herself, no matter how powerful you have become, I will still defeat you. The disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace are not allowed to lose, in the past, present, or future. Dang! The bronze bell for the finals was rung. The third elder let out a long breath and shouted, "Time's up. Let the competition begin." Yixian put away the soul stones and walked to the center of the field step by step. She stood 10 meters away from Yichun. Yichun looked at Yixian and said, I haven't seen you for a few months. I didn't expect you to have improved so much. You have reached the peak of the early condensing reality realm. The last time they met, Yixian was at the same level as Yi Tang. Her Zhanqi had not stabilized yet. But after a few months, everything had changed. My training speed should be one of the best in the Sky Cloud Martial School. But in the Emerald Martial Palace it is nothing. There are a lot of people who have improved faster than me. Yixian used her words to attack Yichen's confidence. Yichun smiled carelessly and said, Let's begin. Your sword art is not bad, I wonder how it would compare to mine. Just as she finished talking, Yixian's body flashed and appeared 5 steps away from Yichun like a wisp of smoke. The long sword in her hand casually shook and started to vibrate violently. The tip of the sword exploded with bright sword light that looked like fireworks, which covered the area in front of Yichun. Great! Yixian's sword art was very good, but it had ignited Yichen's fighting spirit. He took out his great steel sword and attacked back at an even faster speed. Within a second, he had stabbed out 36 times. Puff, 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 puff. The tips of the 2 swords clashed together, creating bright sparks that covered both of their bodies. Only sparks could be seen flying everywhere. Yixian had been famous for her sword art since 3 years ago. In the 3 years since she joined the Emerald Martial Palace, her sword art had improved by leaps and bounds. Right now, when she used all of her power, it was impossible for the naked eye to see the sword's trajectory. It was like lightning in the sky, or stars in the night sky flashing and dancing. But Yichun did not have such great talent before, and was called trash by others. Ever since he had merged with the other Yichen's soul, his comprehension ability had increased tremendously. No matter what kind of martial art he learned, he would be able to reach the highest level in a short period of time. He was like a monster. With a sword in his hand, Yichun performed all of the lone peak of 13 swords. His sword art was unconstrained and unconstrained without any trace. It was also like an antelope's horn. With one stroke of his sword, he was able to block out 3 of his opponent's sword attacks. The two fought from the center of the arena to the outside of the arena, and from the outside of the arena to the podium. The intense sword art shocked the younger generation of the Yi family. They all stared at the fight without blinking their eyes, afraid that they would miss the most exciting scene. On the VIP seats, all of the important people gasped. This is unbelievable. Are they still 14 or 15 years old? They are even better than some of the older generation who have been practicing sword arts for a long time. The student has surpassed the master. The future is indeed the world of the young. To be able to watch this battle, this trip was not in vain. The discussions of the crowd did not affect the two. Instead, the battle was getting more and more intense. The peak of perfection. With his powerful strength, Yi Chen was not afraid of his opponent's Zhanqi attack at all. He stabbed out with his sword, as if he was standing on top of a mountain. Yi Xian's eyes were wide open. The long sword in her hand turned into a glazed color. She threw out a sword attack and yelled in a low voice, "Break!" Crack! The great steel sword in Yi Chen's hand made a noise. It was a sign that it was about to break. But it was no wonder. Yi Xian's sword was the famous glazed sword in the Emerald Martial Palace, while Yi Chen's was just a normal great steel sword. The two were not even on the same level. Naturally, it would not last for long. Pushing his qi to its limit, Yi Chen suddenly let go of the great steel sword in his right hand. He drew a circle in the air and fiercely slammed out. Shoo 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 shoo. The great steel sword turned into thousands of pieces, flying towards Yi Xian like a swarm of locusts. So cunning. But it doesn't work on me. Being shocked by Yi Chen's strange attack, Yi Xian was enraged. She also drew a circle in front of her with her left hand and spread out a layer of glazed Zhanqi shield, blocking out all of the incoming fragments. Ha ha ha! Take my punch! After losing his long sword, Yi Chen's aura did not decrease. Instead, it increased. The qi and blood in his body started to flow. The second he rushed out, he threw out a punch. Bang! A loud sound was heard. The Zhanqi shield was broken. Yi Xian used the short time to fly backwards. She switched the sword to her left hand and raised her right hand's index and middle fingers. She then quickly touched the sword. It is the Star Sword spell. This time Yi Chen is in trouble. But it seems like Yi Xian has indirectly proved that her sword art is not as good as Yi Chen's. So what? Battles between warriors only care about the result, not the process. You are right. While the crowd was shouting, beams of sharp starlight shot out one after another, blocking all of Yi Chen's escape routes. Other than taking it head-on, there was no other way for him to escape. Yi Chen did not panic. His body started to shine with a jade-like light. He yelled, "Let's see if your spear or my shield is stronger." Chapter 46. Boom! The first ray of starlight was blown away by Yi Chen's punch, then the second, the third. In the end, Yi Chen's punching speed could no longer keep up with the number of starlights. His upper body was hit a few times, making a loud noise like metal hitting metal. When they looked again, Yi Chen's body was unharmed except for a few holes in his clothes. His tough skin was covered with a layer of jade light, which was the sign of the completion of the third spell of the pure jade body boosting spell. He was only one step away from the fourth spell, Broken Jade Rebirth. What kind of defensive martial art is that? It can block the attacks of the Point Star Sword spell. This is too shocking. What other tricks does this guy have up his sleeves? Every time he is in a critical moment, he can always turn the tables. I think Yi Xian is in danger as well. This guy is too scary, he keeps on playing all kinds of tricks, no one knows what he is doing. Hearing the discussions of the big shots around him, Yi Tianhao had the same feeling. Thinking back, Yi Chen first beat Yi Feng with one punch, then beat Yi Jun with ease, then beat Yi Tang with an unexpected win, and now he was fighting with Yi Xian. It was so surprising that he was a bit numb to it. He looked at Shen Yuqing, and the two of them looked at each other. Yi Badian was also numb. He wanted to see the scene of Yi Chen's defeat, but who would have thought that even Yi Xian could not beat him? Didn't that mean that Tang was no match for Yi Chen? This is ridiculous. How did this brat get so powerful? After a few heavy breaths, Yi Batian stared down at the stage. On the stage, Yi Xian bit her lips and cursed. Let's see how many attacks you can block. Gathering all of her Zhan Qi on her finger, Yi Xian rubbed her finger on the crystal sword. When the Zhan Qi and the crystal sword rubbed against each other, a miraculous change occurred. It was as if the Zhan Qi and the crystal sword had merged together, forming the unbreakable starlight blades. Shoo shoo shoo! Some of the starlight blades lost their aim and left thousands of holes in the ground. It was a tragic sight to behold. Some of the spectators even had their weapons cut in half, and they jumped away in horror. What a terrifying force! How did that Yi Chen block it? Only now did everyone deeply understand the power of the point star sword art. It was absolutely not something an ordinary person could block. The clothes on Yi Chen's upper body burst open, revealing his slightly tender but abnormally strong muscles. Several starlight blades shot over, and the moment they were just a hair's breadth away from his skin, the jade-like light on the surface of his skin immediately erupted with an astonishing power, easily shattering the external attacks. Roar! Yi Chen's long hair danced in the wind as he dashed towards Yi Xian with a mountain-like pressure and threw out a punch. Yi Xian was a little annoyed. Yi Chen's power was slowly shattering her confidence. She doubted if she could take that punch, or else she wouldn't be thinking about it. I want to see if your fist is harder or if my glazed sword is sharper. Regaining her confidence, Yi Xian yelled and switched the long sword back to her right hand. With her usual arrogance, she thrust the sword straight towards Yi Chen's fist. Shoo! The tip of the sword and the fist made contact, sparks were ignited. It was as if the fist was not made of flesh and blood, but made of the hardest metal. The glazed sword was bent by the powerful force, but it soon straightened back into a straight line without any signs of breaking. However, the rebound force from the sword had also blown Yi Xian back, and blood dripped out from the corner of her mouth. Yi Chen's aura was even more intense. He chased after her and threw out another punch. Pooh! This time, Yi Xian finally could not handle the rebound force of her Zhan Qi. The long sword in her hand flew out of her hand, and her face was pale white. Her eyes lost their luster. The training ground was quiet for a second, and then a huge uproar broke out. So many twists and turns. I cannot believe that Yi Chen would be the champion. Who would have thought this would happen? If I knew this would happen, I would have bet on Yi Chen to win. 5 silvers would have been 10 times better. Damn, I bet 10 silvers on Yi Tang? That's a month's worth of my salary. After the competition, the ones who were the most worried were not the others, but the servants of the Yi family. They had secretly set up a gambling house, preparing to make a fortune from it. However, once the result was out, most of the people were shocked and regretful. Only the people behind the gambling house were ecstatic. This time they had made 5 times or even 10 times more than usual. It would be enough for them to live a happy life for a long time. The third elder was the first to come back to his senses. He cleared his throat and said loudly, "The champion is Yi Chen. Now we will compete for the second and the third place." Hearing this, the servants who had lost all their money just remembered that they had also bet on the second and third place. They might be able to get back some of their money. As for making money, there was no need to think about it. It was all their fault for having such bad taste. Yi Hai easily beat Yi Tang, who had lost his confidence, and became the third place, while Yi Xian naturally became the second place. The champion was, of course, Yi Chen, who had made it through all the obstacles in his way. At the same time, he was also the most famous person in the Yi family. When it was time to give out the rewards, the third elder smiled at Yi Chen and said, "Keep up the good work, don't get too full of yourself." Yi Chen said, "I will, third elder." Good, with you geniuses in the Yi family, we, the older generation, can finally relax. With the low-rank storage ring in his hand, Yi Chen immediately put it on his finger and threw in 100 low-rank soul stones and 10,000 gold notes. Letting out a breath, Yi Chen turned his head and realized that Yi Xian was looking at him. "Next time we meet, I will beat you." Yi Xian had already gotten over the shock of losing. What she could not accept was that she had lost her confidence at such a critical moment. It was something she could not accept. Yi Chen did not mind, he said. "Then you need to pick up your pace, I have already started." "Huh." Yi Xian sneered and did not say anything else. "Aha, Yi Chen, you are also my goal, don't be too weak." Among the contestants, Yi Hai was just like his name, he had a heart as big as the ocean. He was also more accepting of losing than the others, so he started to greet Yi-chan. Yi-chan quite liked Yi-hai. After this family gathering, are you still going to travel the world with your teacher? Yi-hai nodded heavily. Of course, traveling the world is my dream, and I will never give up. This time my teacher said that he will take me to the most dangerous place in the Black Dragon Empire so that I can gain some experience. However, after today, I think we will only see each other again at the end of next year. I am looking forward to it. Me too. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for your kind words. Let's go out for a drink later. I guess you haven't had a drink yet. I have had a little. I believe I can handle it. After the award ceremony, Yi Tianhao stood up in high spirits. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you all for coming to the annual family gathering of the Yi family. Next is the banquet. I hope everyone can come. Alright, it would be a waste if we don't eat. I am just afraid that the leader of the Yi family would feel bad." Someone joked. Yi Tianhao laughed. Of course not everyone. Eat as much as you want. I am very happy today. When everyone was walking towards the banquet hall, two people in the corner of the field were especially eye-catching. Elder Hai, how is this guy? Very powerful, but still not as powerful as the geniuses of our Hai family, unless he can reach the condensing reality realm. Hearing him, that person sighed. These years, there are so many geniuses in the Windy Nation. I wonder what kind of sparks they will create in the future. Maybe they can leave the Windy Nation and make a name for themselves in the whole South Rudra region. It will be difficult. Our Windy Nation is the weakest in the whole South Rudra region, and our geniuses are not as powerful as the other countries. If we can have a leader, then we might have some hope. Chapter 47. The banquet only ended in the evening. Most of the guests were drunk to the point that their faces were red and their eyes were hazy. On the other hand, Yi-chan, Yi-hai, and a few other disciples of the Yi family were sitting at the same table, chatting while eating, drinking, and forming a preliminary friendship. At this time, Yi Tianhao suddenly called Yi-chan over. "Chan, this is the chief escort of the Riding Wind Escort Agency, Uncle Su Tai. And this is his second daughter, Su Mei." Yi Tianhao pulled Yi-chan aside and introduced them with a smile on his face. "Hello, Uncle Su." Yi-chan sized up the two. Su Tai was a burly man in his 40s, wearing the chief escort's uniform, looking majestic. His second daughter, Su Mei, was no more than 16 years old, wearing a red outfit. Her figure was graceful, her face was delicate, and there was a sense of heroism in her charm. At this time, when she saw Yi-chan looking at her, a trace of shyness could be seen on her face. Su Tai was also sizing up Yi-chan. After a while, he laughed and said, as expected, "Heroes come from the youth. At such a young age, you already have a decisive and murderous aura. You are not a fish in a pond." These words were not nonsense. Su Tai had roamed the pugilistic world for so many years. He had seen all kinds of people. He could see the difference of some peerless characters when they were young. Although Yi-chan looked delicate and handsome like a scholar, there was a faint cold aura between his brows that could not be underestimated. Yi-chan said modestly, "Uncle Su, you flatter me." Su Tai shook his head. "Your Uncle Su is a boorish man. I don't know what modesty is. To me, modesty is hypocrisy. No, I like you and my daughter also likes you. Why don't we find some time to get to know each other?" Although Yi Tianhao knew that Su Tai's personality was like this, he was still speechless. However, he wanted to see how Yi-chan would answer. "Uncle Su, since you're so straightforward, then I'll also say it clearly. Before I reach my father's strength, Yi-chan will not consider love affairs," Yi-chan said seriously. After being stunned for a moment, Su Tai helplessly said, "It seems like my daughter is unlucky. Fine, you will definitely become a true dragon in the future. Mayor will not be able to protect you." Yi Tianhao was very satisfied with Yi Chen's ambition, but he scolded, "Nonsense, a real man is never afraid of love." He then turned to Su Tai and said, "Brother Su, let them settle their own matters. We can't interfere even if we want to. Don't you agree?" Su Tai nodded. "That's true. Since that's the case, we'll take our leave first. We'll meet again in the future. Mayor, let's go." Yi Tianhao urged him to stay. "Brother Su, you're leaving so soon. It's still early." "I won't stay. My wife made me some soup at home." Su Tai waved his hand and started to leave. Sume followed closely behind him. Waiting until the two were far away, Yi Tianhao turned around and stared at Yi Chan, which made the latter's hair stand on end. After a while, Yi Tianhao said, "You're quite tired from today's competition. Go back and rest." "Yeah, I'll say goodbye to Yi Hai and the others." Looking at Yi Chen's back, a smile appeared on Yi Tianhao's face. God had indeed given him a surprise, and it was in a situation where he did not have much hope. Shen Yuqing walked over and said, "Tianhao, what's wrong?" Yi Tianhao laughed. "What do you think Chan will be able to reach in the future? Our Luo city has not had an astral-reaching realm warrior for more than 100 years. You are quite daring. But our Chan is indeed different from before. Have you noticed? It seems like I have noticed something, but it seems like I haven't seen anything. Who cares? As long as he is our Chan it will be fine." In the dead of the night, a crescent moon hung above the trees. The light in Yi Chen's room was still on, illuminating the screen window. On the clean and spacious bed, Yi Chan sat in the middle of the room with his legs crossed, mist rising from the top of his head. According to Yi Chen's estimation, he would only be able to step into the condensing reality realm after 7 days. But after the few battles today, his qi had become even more condensed, showing signs of liquefaction. This kind of opportunity was hard to come by, and Yi Chen did not want to miss it. Therefore, once he got back to his room, he immediately cleared away all distracting thoughts and focused on breaking through. As his qi continued to circulate and compress, the liquefied qi in Yi Chen's dantian gradually increased. Before it was just a strand, but now it was like a ribbon clearly separated from his qi. 2 hours. 4 hours. 10 hours. The sky gradually brightened. The servants of the Yi family all woke up and started their daily work. No one knew how much time had passed. The screen window in Yi Chen's room was shaking, making a cracking sound, as if it was being blown by a strong wind. Inside the room, with Yi Chen as the center, the invisible airflow formed a funnel shape, and all the lighter objects rose up and floated in the air. Whoosh! A strange vibration spread out from Yi Chen's dantian, and the floating objects immediately fell back down, making a series of messy noises. Finally, the condensing reality realm. Slowly letting out a deep breath, Yi Chen opened his eyes. Bright light flashed in the air like lightning. After a long while, the light disappeared, and a confident smile appeared on Yi Chen's face. In fact, before last night, he did not even have a 50% chance of breaking through to the condensing reality realm, maybe only 30 to 40%. After all, it was not easy to liquefy qi into Zhen qi. It needed a long time to compress and compress it. Otherwise, there would not be so many people stuck at the peak of mortal realm stage 10 for half a year, and some even took a year to break through. Even the top outer disciple, Wu Zongming, took more than half a year to break through and become an inner disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. As for geniuses like Zhang Haoren, who managed to break through to the condensing reality realm in just 1 or 2 months, it was rare to find one in 10,000. In other words, only warriors who reached the condensing reality realm could be considered as real warriors. Before reaching the condensing reality realm, they were at the bottom of the true spirit continent, just like apprentices. However, once they reached the condensing reality realm, their power would not just increase by a few times, but by a few times, and they would be able to kill people from 10 steps away. Right now, if Yi Chen and Yi Xian were to fight, he was confident that he would be able to defeat her within a few attacks, and it would be effortless. Maybe I should take a look at the Zhen qi first. Yi Chen mumbled to himself, as he focused his mind on his dantian. The huge Zhen qi whirlpool had disappeared, and was replaced by a whirlpool of Zhen qi. No matter in terms of quality or quantity, it was a level higher than qi. It spun like a nebula in the sky, or a whirlpool in the water, full of power. Pushing the pure yuan art with all his might, Yi Chen's robe began to expand. Ha! He threw out a punch, and the window 10 steps away suddenly shattered into thousands of pieces, shooting everywhere. A strong wind blew all the way into the yard. From today onwards, I can start training the tyrant fist. I wonder how powerful it is. Since he did not feel tired, Yi Chen did not sleep anymore. He got up and washed up, then opened the door and walked out. Chapter 48. In Luoyang City, if one were to ask which mansion was the largest, it would definitely be the Yi family. The Yi family, which occupied 1,000 acres of land, was 3 times larger than the city lord's mansion. Inside there were pavilions, small bridges, flowing streams, bamboo forests, and a sea of trees. It was like a miniature version of Luoyang City. After passing through a few corridors and a 10-feet-long white jade bridge, a huge training field appeared in front of Yi Chen's eyes. The martial arts field was quite lively. Those warriors of the Yi family who did not need to work and only needed to practice their martial arts were all diligently practicing. They were either pondering on their own, consulting others, or fighting in pairs, honing their skills. It was a scene that was in full swing. "Greetings, young Master Chan." Outside the field, 5 middle-aged men and women greeted Yi Chan respectfully. Yi Chen nodded. "Is it your turn to teach martial skills today?" These 5 people were the martial skill teachers of the Yi family. The Yi family claimed to have more than 300 warriors who were above the condensing reality realm. 2/3 of them were the direct family members, and the rest were warriors who did not have the same surname as the Yi family. According to their cultivation level, their positions were also different. For example, the clasping Yuan realm warriors would be the external elders of the Yi family, the late condensing reality realm warriors would be the deacons, and the mid-condensing reality realm warriors would be the martial skill teachers, just like these 5 people in front of Yi Chan. The early condensing reality realm warriors would be the apprentice teachers, who did not have the right to teach directly. Yes, the training field has 3 shifts every 3 days. Today is our turn. The middle-aged woman on the left answered. "I was just passing by. You guys go ahead." Yi Chan waved his hand and walked away. In the middle, a middle-aged scholar in a gray robe sighed. "Young Master Chan has reached the condensing reality realm. Even you and I might not be able to beat him. Geniuses can break the rules easily. How can we compare? Alright, stop complaining. One day, when we reach the clasping Yuan realm, we will be able to become the external elders of the Yi family. Then we will be able to live a peaceful life." You are right. The training field was 400 meters away from the dining hall. After a while, Yi Chan finally walked to the entrance of the dining hall unhurriedly. When Yi Chan walked in, some of the people were already having breakfast. "Chaner, you're up so early." Yi Tianhao was a busy man, so he always got up early. Yi Chan said, "I didn't sleep yesterday. I've been cultivating until now." A hint of surprise flashed through Yi Tianhao's eyes. "You have reached the condensing reality realm?" "I just broke through." He really broke through. Yi Tianhao only said it subconsciously. He didn't expect Yi Chen's answer to be so certain. For a moment he was stunned. Then he was overjoyed. If the previous Yi Chan could only be considered a fighting genius, and his training wasn't eye-catching, then the current Yi Chan was a true genius. No one could take away the glory that belonged to him, and he was now on par with Yi Xian, Yi Tang, and the others. "Let me have a look." Yi Tianhao put his hand on Yi Chen's shoulder. Although it was easy to tell Yi Chen's cultivation level from the surface, under some special circumstances, warriors at the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10 would also emit a slight zhenqi vibration, which could easily be mistaken for warriors who had just reached the condensing reality realm. When the clasping Yuan realm zhenqi entered Yi Chen's body, it immediately received a strong counterattack. Yi Tianhao was afraid of hurting Yi Chan, so he hurriedly cut off the zhenqi and let go of his hand. "You are indeed at the early condensing reality realm, and your zhenqi is quite stable. Just one more step and you will reach the peak of the early condensing reality realm." Yi Tianhao couldn't believe it. Yi Chan was also not sure. He guessed, could it be the effect of the pure Yuan art? Yi Tianhao nodded. "It should be. There are not many people like you who have trained the pure Yuan art to the highest level. The zhenqi produced by the pure Yuan art is extremely pure. Once it is liquefied into zhenqi, your foundation will be much more stable than most people, and you won't need to spend too much time to consolidate it." "That's not bad, it saves me a lot of hard work," Yi Chen thought. "Alright, let's have breakfast first. I will tell your mother when I get back, she will be very happy." Yi Tianhao was already full. He was so happy that he started eating with Yi Chan, chatting as they ate. Soon Yi Hai, Yi Xian and the others arrived. When they saw Yi Chan, they didn't pay much attention at first, but when they took a closer look, they immediately realized that he had reached the condensing reality realm. They were all shocked. Yi Tianhao saw that it was getting late. He said to Yi Chan, "Take your time, I will leave now." "Yes, father." After Yi Tianhao left, Yi Hai walked over and said, "Yi Chan, have you reached the condensing reality realm?" Yi-chun laughed. Why don't you try and find out? Come on. Yi-hai got into a fighting stance. Standing up, Yi-chun said. One punch is enough, come on. Ha! Yi-hai did not dare to underestimate Yi-chun. He threw out a punch filled with zhanqi. The air started to ripple and spread out. Yi-chun did not move his body. He threw out a punch as well. Boom! The air was torn apart, and the two fists collided, producing a crackling sound. No, you are too abnormal, you just broke through and your zhanqi is already so stable. Yi-hai took 10 steps back. He had a bitter smile on his face. Yi-chun sat back on the chair. Let's have breakfast together. The two sat face to face without any pretense. Yi-xian, who was not far from them, had a depressed look on her face. She thought that once she reached the mid-condensing reality realm, she would be able to suppress Yi-chun, but he had already reached the early condensing reality realm, and his zhanqi was so stable it would be impossible for her to win against him now, even if she reached the mid-condensing reality realm. Yi-chun, I forgot to tell you, Sister Shuyan has already reached the late condensing reality realm. Yi-xian did not want to admit defeat in front of Yi-chun, so she mentioned Ji-shuan to hurt him. Yi-chun said casually, she is not my goal. My first goal is to dominate the younger generation of the Windy Nation. As for the second goal, I have not thought about it yet. Yi-xian heard him and said scornfully, in your dreams. There are so many powerful young warriors in the Windy Nation, not to mention the famous 4 young masters. Even our Emerald Martial Palace's inner disciples could easily suppress you. Of course, you might think that I am just bragging, but you just have to go back and ask your senior brothers and sisters, in the martial world, who has never been bullied by our Emerald Martial Palace's disciples. Yi-xian, I don't like what you just said. You are indeed a disciple of the Emerald Martial Palace, but first of all, you are a direct disciple of the Yi family. How can you always use outsiders to attack your own people? Yi-hai did not like Yi-xian's attitude. He put down his chopsticks and said. Yi-xian sneered, I just don't like him. Yi-hai said straightforwardly, I think you just can't accept the fact that you lost. That's right, before Yi-chun was just a normal talent, he could not compete with you at all, you never thought that you would lose to him, so when Yi-chun showed that he was way more powerful than you, it made you feel uncomfortable, am I right? Don't be too happy yet. Just because he is more powerful now does not mean that he will continue to be like this in the future. The Emerald Martial Palace is the top martial institution in the Windy Nation. All the disciples they raise are the best. Yi-xian was dazed by Yi-hai's words, she said excitedly. Yi-xian is right, you two are like frogs at the bottom of a well. The North Snow Martial Academy and the Emerald Martial Palace are ranked 7 martial institutions. Their power is not something you can imagine. Just you wait, in 1 year I will definitely beat you two. Yi Tang had arrived at the dining room. Yi-chun sneered in his mind, although the two of them were quite talented, their temperaments were a lot worse. They were fine when everything went smoothly for them, but once they encountered some kind of setback they would be even worse than normal people. Plus, they liked to dwell on something and never let it go, which eventually led to a mental imbalance. To put it simply, they were blinded. There was no need to argue with them. Yi-chun said lightly, everything needs to be proven with your actions, you can just say whatever you want. Alright, don't disturb my breakfast. Chapter 49. After breakfast, Yi-chun and Yi-hai went to the famous Antique Street in Luo City. The history of the Antique Street was almost as long as Luo City. The buildings were also the oldest, but the owners of the shops had changed a lot. Of course, most of them were inherited by their fathers generation after generation. Walking on the street, Yi-chun was overwhelmed by the variety of goods in the shops. Yi-hai said, the Antique Street is usually full of opportunities. There was once a man who bought an inconspicuous top-rank soul stone with 10 silvers and sold it to a clasping Yuan realm warrior. He made more than 2 million silvers and never had to worry about food or clothing for the rest of his life. Yi-chun smiled. He knew about this as well. Soul stones were divided into 4 ranks: low rank, mid rank, top rank, and extreme rank. The difference between each rank was huge. Normally, a mid-rank soulstone could be exchanged for 50 low-rank soulstones, and a top-rank soulstone could be exchanged for 50 mid-rank soulstones. In other words, a top-rank soulstone could be exchanged for 2,500 low-rank soulstones, which was 250 silvers. It was enough for a normal person to live a peaceful life for 10 lifetimes. Let's go to the 9 Cauldron Pavilion. Yihai pointed at the antique building 20 steps away. Yichen nodded. The 9 Cauldron Pavilion was a 1,000-year-old shop on the antique street. It had the most connections. In the middle of the lobby there was a bronze cauldron. The leader of the Yi family wanted to buy it, but was rejected. It was said that the 9 Cauldron Pavilion had a very powerful background. Even the Yi family had to think twice before making a move on it. As they crossed the threshold, no one came to greet them. They were all busy with their own business. Yichen and Yihai did not care and walked straight in. The first thing they saw was a huge bronze cauldron that was as tall as 3 people. It was cyan with a hint of black, perfectly round shape. There were many different ancient characters carved on its surface. It was supported by 9 legs, which looked very stable. It looked like it could hold up the sky and bring great shock to people's souls. Yichen took a deep breath. The last time he came here was 4 years ago. At that time he was not very sensible. When he saw the 9-legged bronze cauldron, he did not feel much. He only felt that it was very imposing. Now that he saw it, he felt as if his soul was trembling, and his lively Zhanqi was showing signs of stagnation. Turning his head to look at Yihai, Yichen saw that Yihai was unmoved. Yichen felt strange, but he didn't say anything. Let's go to the 2nd floor. The 1st floor is filled with small toys, Yichen suggested after casually looking around and seeing that there were no antiques that caught his eye. Yes, the antiques on the 1st floor are no different from other antique shops. The two of them walked side by side and arrived at the quaint and elegant 2nd floor. Compared to the 1st floor, there were very few people on the 2nd floor. Including the shop assistants who were waiting at the side, there were only 15 to 16 people. It seemed extremely empty. However, those who could come to the 2nd floor were all rich. After all, even the most common antique on the 2nd floor cost nearly 1,000 taels of silver to buy. As for whether it was a profit or a loss, it all depended on one's luck. TSK. These stone figurines have at least a few hundred years of history. Yihai was attracted by the stone figurines that were as tall as a person and were covered in cracks. Yichen looked at them and lost interest. He separated from Yihai and walked to the other side. Right then, there were already people who had chosen their favorite antiques. However, it was this antique that surprised Yichen. Hey, tell your shopkeeper that I want this wooden shelf. No matter how much it costs, it's not a problem. The person who spoke was a fat man with a rich face. He was wearing extravagant clothes and all 10 of his fingers were covered with rings. He looked like a nouveau riche who had just made a fortune. He seemed to be impatient. The shop assistant was depressed. Why did you want the wooden shelf that displayed the antiques? Aren't you deliberately making things difficult for me? He smiled and said, Okay, I'll go and ask. Please wait a moment. Go and come back quickly. The fat rich man waved his hand and stared at the wooden shelf. He was afraid that it would run away. Yichen felt that it was funny. However, he, who was always calm, started to think about it again. He could not judge a book by its cover. This wooden shelf might have some tricks up its sleeves. After thinking about it, he focused on the wooden shelf and released his soul power. Buzz! There seemed to be an invisible ripple in the air, slowly seeping into the wooden shelf and searching carefully. As long as there was something special, Yichen would be able to sense it. This wooden frame actually contains a spirit stone, and the yuan qi contained in it is dozens of times that of a low-grade spirit stone. So, it must be a mid-grade spirit stone, which is equivalent to 50,000 silvers. But how did this fatty sense it? Or maybe he just wanted this wooden frame and had no other intentions. Chen Fan wondered. Yichen was shocked. However, a mere 50,000 silvers was not worth his attention. With his current power, it was easy to earn money. Of course, it was even easier to spend money. The shopkeeper of the 9-tripod pavilion hurried up and said to the fat rich man with a smile, Sir, are you sure you want this wooden shelf? The fat rich man rolled his eyes. Name your price. The shopkeeper raised one finger. 10,000 silvers. All right, very cheap. My father-in-law should like this old wooden shelf a lot. The fat rich man did not even frown as he took out 1,000 gold note from his storage ring. As long as he likes it. Shaoli, hurry up and help the customer clean the wooden shelf. The shopkeeper took the gold note and said to the worker on the side. Yichen was speechless. If what the fat rich man said was true, Then he really did not see anything special about this wooden shelf, and was only using it to please his father-in-law. Moreover, the shopkeeper did not know where he got this wooden shelf from, and used it as a decoration on the second floor. Therefore, he did not lose anything. It seemed like there were too many strange things happening in the 9-tripod pavilion. Shaking his head, Yi-chan walked past them. There were too many antiques on the second floor. There was a half-bronze mirror covered in rust, a black vase, and some cloth from an unknown era. There were even more broken armors and weapons such as chainmail, steel armor, 7 exquisite armors, long sabers, broken spears, broken swords, bent iron rods, meteor hammers without chains, and so on. Releasing his soul power, Yi-chan looked through them one by one. His eyes were as calm as water. Finally, the only thing that caught his eye was that meteor hammer. If it could be restored to its original form, its value would not be lower than the great blade in Yi-chan's storage ring, and it might even be more valuable. Unfortunately, the broken meteor hammer had lost its sharpness, and after thousands of years of erosion, it had lost all of its spirit chi. If he took it back, it could only be used as a decoration or an antique and could not be used. This was something that Yi-chan could not accept. Putting down the meteor hammer, Yi-chan was about to leave. Suddenly, his eyes fixed on a broken sword in the gap between the wooden shelf and the wall. This broken sword only had a hilt and a small part of the blade. Its surface was dull and inconspicuous. Who knew how many years it had been hidden here without anyone noticing it? Reaching out his hand to pick up the broken sword, Yi-chan observed it for a while, and then pushed his soul power into it. Ha 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 ha! A desolate and vast laughter rushed into Yi-chan's mind. All of a sudden, Yi-chan felt like he had come back to the ancient times, where the world was chaotic, and only the laughter could be heard. What is going on? Yi-chan cut off his soul power, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. The ability to use soul power to detect objects was something that Yi-chan had discovered not long ago. Different from soul power could detect deeper than the surface. Otherwise, he would not have been able to detect the mid-rank soul stones in the wooden shelf. Chapter 50. Hey, I want this sword. How much is it? Yi-chan didn't put it back. Instead, he asked the shop assistant who was waiting on the side. The shop assistant glanced at the broken sword. The owner said that all these ancient weapons are 20,000 silvers. No bargaining, no raising price. Okay. This price was within Yi-chan's price range, so it was worth it. On the other side, Yi-hai also chose a stone statue and a broken bronze bell, which added up to 15,000 silvers. With this calculation, the annual profit of the 9-cauldron pavilion was an astronomical figure. After all, some of the ancient weapons were only worth a few dozen silvers. When the two walked out of the 9-cauldron pavilion, it was already noon. Yi-chan, let's go eat at the Sun restaurant. It's my treat. Yi-hai had a storage ring, which was given to him by his master, the Broken Mountain guest. He put the stone statue and the broken bronze bell in it. The Sun restaurant was the biggest restaurant in Luo City. Yi-chan had not been there for a long time, so he nodded immediately. After 15 minutes, the two arrived at the Sun restaurant. Under the guidance of the waiter, they went to the second floor. Masters, would you like a private room? Or would you like to eat in the lobby? The waiter asked. Yi-chan said, let's eat in the lobby. Okay, there is a table by the window this way, please. The waiter first gestured with his hand, then quickly picked up the towel on his shoulder and wiped the table. Sitting down, Yi-hai looked at the street outside and said, looks like Luo City is more familiar. You don't know, but my master and I travel almost every day. Today we might be in this city, and the next day we might be in some unknown town thousands of miles away. Sometimes, if we are unlucky, there will be no one in a radius of 10,000 miles, so we can only sleep in the wilderness. Yi-chan asked, have you encountered any danger? Of course, my master and I were once chased by a level 6 top-tier demonic beast in the Black Dragon Empire's Great Desolate Mountain. We were also besieged by the famous underworld experts of the Rudra Nation. Luckily, we were lucky enough to escape without any mishaps. Recalling the past, Yi-hai still had lingering fears. Yi-chan admired Yi-hai. He was obviously a playboy. Of course, his master, Broken Mountain guest, was also a playboy. It was no wonder that the two of them had become master and disciple. When the dishes were served, The two of them ordered a pot of wine and ate with relish. Thud thud thud. While they were eating, the sound of messy footsteps came from the staircase. There were many people. Brother Chui, the Sun Restaurant is the biggest restaurant in Luo City. Many famous warriors have dined here before. You will not be disappointed. A crisp female voice was heard. It was Yi Xian. Since junior sister Yi praises Sunrise Restaurant so highly, there must be something extraordinary about it. Junior brothers, please have a good taste later. Of course, it's rare for me to come to junior sister Ye's territory, so I have to make some memories. Sister Yi, although Luo City is good, it is not a good place to stay for long. The Emerald Martial Palace will be your home in the future. Someone tried to persuade her. The footsteps were getting louder and louder as they arrived at the second floor. Yi Xian was about to say something when she saw Yi Chan and Yi Hai sitting by the window. She snorted and frowned. Junior sister Yi, who are these two? The teenager with small eyes noticed the change in Yi Xian's gaze. He turned his head and saw Yi Chan and Yi Hai's silhouettes on the second floor. Yi Xian said lightly, "They are disciples of the Yi family." Disciples of the Yi family, I wonder which sect they are from? Another teenager asked. One of them is in the Sky Cloud Martial School, the other one is traveling with the Broken Mountain Traveler. Yi Xian answered honestly. The Sky Cloud Martial School is a big martial institution in the Windy Nation. Unfortunately, it is not comparable to our Emerald Martial Palace. They are 2 ranks apart. As for who is the Broken Mountain Traveler, I have never heard of him. Could he be a scammer? The teenagers joked with each other. Yi Hai had already noticed their arrival. He didn't want to talk to them, but he didn't expect them to directly insult his master, the Broken Mountain Traveler. He was annoyed. He put down his chopsticks, turned around and said, "Who are you? Do you know that it is rude to insult someone's master?" The teenager with small eyes sneered. "I am just reminding you. Don't fall for some scammer's tricks. Otherwise, it is not worth it if you lose your life." If it was a normal day, they would definitely give Yi Xian some face. But when they heard that Yi Xian had lost to a guy named Yi Chan, they felt very uncomfortable. Although Yi Xian didn't say it clearly, but once they heard that he was from the Sky Cloud Martial School, they immediately understood. Therefore, they mocked him without holding back, showing off the power of the Emerald Martial Palace. Yi Hai's face darkened. "Take back what you said, and I will not hold you accountable." What a joke. Words can never be taken back. What do you want to do? The teenager with small eyes looked at Yi Hai provocatively. Yi Xian looked troubled. These people were all disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace. They were at the same cultivation level as her. The one with the highest cultivation level was Brother Chui Shiming, who had been quiet the whole time. He was already a mid-condensing reality realm warrior, and was considered one of the top inner disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace. Although Chui Shiming didn't say it out loud, Yi Xian could clearly feel that he was interested in her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come all the way from the Emerald Martial Palace just to see her. On one side were disciples of the Yi family, and on the other side were disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace. Yi Xian didn't want any conflict between them. She didn't want to see the Yi family or the Emerald Martial Palace being humiliated. "Lu Zhao, forget it." Yi Xian finally stopped him. The teenager with small eyes named Lu Zhao glanced at Yi Hai, nodded and said, "I will give Sister Yi some face. Otherwise, you will be the one suffering. You have to try." Mountain Fist Art. Yi Hai roared. All of his Zhan Qi was activated, and he threw a punch towards Lu Zhao. "You are looking for death." A cold light flashed through Lu Zhao's eyes. He took a step forward and blocked Yi Hai's way, then threw out a palm attack. Boom! A few tables nearby were flipped over by the strong wind, and the diners all ran away. Yi Hai backed out 3 steps and yelled again. Another punch was thrown out, and it was even more powerful than the first one. Broken jade palm. Lu Zhao's face looked a bit bad after failing to beat Yi Hai with 1 palm attack. He immediately performed the top martial art of the Emerald Martial Palace, and a light jade crack appeared on his palm. The fist and the palm clashed, and the sound of jade breaking exploded. Yi Hai was slightly weaker than his opponent in terms of cultivation, so he couldn't stop the power and was forced to back out. He knocked over 3 or 4 tables in a row but still didn't stop. Seeing that Yi Hai was about to fall out of the window, Yi Chan made his move. His palm lightly patted on Yi Hai's back, and the Zhen Qi from the pure Yuan art destroyed Lu Zhao's Zhen Qi, which saved Yi Hai from making a fool out of himself. You are that Yi Chan, eat my palm attack. Lu Zhao didn't have the chance to teach Yi Chan a lesson. Seeing that Yi Chan had made his move, Lu Zhao didn't care anymore. He took a big step forward and threw out a broken jade palm attack. Piss off. Yi Chan didn't move his body, he threw out a punch, and then took it back immediately. Pooh! As if he was hit by a couple of horses, Lu Zhao was shocked. His body flew back at an even faster speed, and he puked out a huge mouthful of blood. Right then Cui Shiming, who was called Brother Cui by Yi Xian, caught Lu Zhao and said lightly, Brother Lu, in the future, either you don't fight or when you fight you have to make our Emerald Martial Palace famous, remember that? Then his tone changed and he said to Yi Chan, you have heard our Emerald Martial Palace's disciple. Do you know what you have done? Chapter 51. Yi Chan responded blandly, in this true spirit continent, strength is everything. What does it have to do with me if he is not as powerful as others? Strength is everything? So, I can beat you to death without a problem? Cui Shiming narrowed his eyes and said coldly, as long as you have the ability, come at me. But, I have to warn you, if you are injured by me, will another top 10 inner disciple of the Emerald Martial Palace appear? Cui Shiming looked angry. Even if he was an idiot, he could tell that Yi Chan was mocking him. He said scornfully, who do you think you are? How dare you speak so arrogantly? Today, I will destroy your cultivation in front of everyone. I will let everyone know what happens to those who bully the disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace. Yi Xian saw that the fight was about to break out. She tried to stop him. Brother Cui, this is all a misunderstanding. Please don't make a big fuss. Sister Yi, you don't have to worry about this. It's not that I don't want to give you face. It's just that this Yi Chan is way too arrogant. He thinks that he can do whatever he wants just because he is a little bit powerful. If everyone learns from him in the future, then we, the Emerald Martial Palace, would have any prestige left. No matter what Cui Shiming did, he liked to gain the upper hand in the grand scheme of things, and then easily defeat his opponent. He wanted his opponent to suffer a double blow both mentally and physically, never to recover from this setback. Taking a heavy step forward, Cui Shiming felt as if he was stepping on a tornado. An endless gust of wind rose up and burst out, pressing towards Yi Chan with a great pressure. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and the tables and chairs around him floated up into the air and were smashed out of the window. Yi Chen's feet were rooted in the ground, and didn't move at all. He was like a rock that had been standing by the river for thousands of years. No matter how strong the wind or the waves were, they couldn't move him even a little bit. Cui Shiming's expression changed. A shadow split out from his body. This shadow was thin, and was made of countless air currents. It was like a sharp blade, and it flew straight towards Yi Chan. Shadow cut. It's the secret skill. Shadow cut. Brother Cui, you've tried to kill him right from the start. This Yi Chan is dead for sure. The disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace yelled out in surprise. The so-called secret skill was a secret martial skill. This kind of martial skill was very difficult to guard against, and was basically used as a trump card. If caught off guard, even a martial artist with a higher cultivation would be injured or even killed. However, secret skills were very difficult to cultivate, several times harder than martial skills of the same level. Moreover, there were too few secret skills. Most of them were passed down from ancient times. Cui Shiming's Shadow Cut was a top-ranked mortal realm skill, which was divided into 3 levels. The first level was to create a sharp stream of qi from the user's body, which could be used to cut the target. The second level was the level he was currently at, where the sharp qi could form into a shadow, which was extremely flexible and could kill people as easily as chopping vegetables. The third level was said to allow the user to transform into a human shape, which could confuse people's vision and self-destruct, which was extremely lethal. With the Shadow Cut, Cui Shiming had once killed a late-condensing reality realm warrior, which made him quite famous in the martial world. Faced with the shadow's attack, Yi Chan raised his fist and punched out. Whoosh! The wind generated by the punch blew the table in front of him into pieces. The shadow sensed the qi wave, so it twisted its body in advance, dodging the attack that was enough to shatter it, and continued to attack Yi Chan from another angle. Yi Chen frowned. Such a strange martial skill. It was 10 times more flexible than a human's body, and it was very sensitive to the qi wave. It was hard to hurt it directly. The shadow sometimes turned into a human figure and tried to entangle Yi Chen. Sometimes it turned into a sharp awl. Sometimes it stretched its body and attacked like a whip. Sometimes it performed a set of sword art, and the sword light shone brightly. Break! After a while, Yi Chen pulled out his sword and stabbed it into the shadow's forehead. Such a fast sword. Cui Shiming was shocked. He sneered. Don't even think about breaking my shadow cut. But I don't have time to waste with you. Shadow rain kill. Puff 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 puff. The shadow, which had been stabbed in the forehead, dimmed a little. Its body shook in the air, and countless needle-like qi flew towards Yi Chen at an extremely fast speed. Shoo! Since reaching the condensing reality realm, it was the first time that Yi Chen performed the golden swallow art. His body flashed as if he had wings on his back. He instantly disappeared from where he was standing. In the next second, the place where Yi Chen was standing was full of holes. It seemed like it was even more powerful than the small caliber bullets in the 21st century. If I am not wrong, you and the shadow should have some kind of connection. Then I will cut it off. The sword light flashed. Yi Chen's sword landed in the space between Cui Shiming and the shadow. It met with some obstacles along the way, but it still went all the way to the end. Crack! The sound of a thin thread breaking was heard. The shadow changed its shape a few times, and finally scattered. It turned into countless qi waves and disappeared into the air. Bastard! Cui Shiming's face turned pale. This shadow was formed by 1/3 of his Zhanqi, and was controlled by 13 Zhanqi threads. Right now, Yi Chen had cut off all of his Zhanqi threads, which meant that he had lost more than 1/3 of his Zhanqi. What? Brother Cui's shadow cut was broken. This is one of the 13 minor secret martial arts of the Emerald Martial Palace. How could it be broken so easily? Has he seen it before? So this is the secret of the shadow cut. How did he know? All the disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace had different expressions on their faces. After cutting off the Zhanqi thread with one sword attack, Yi Chen looked at Cui Shiming. The secret martial art that is made public is no longer a secret martial art. I am afraid that all the disciples behind you have already known about it. Brother Cui, don't listen to him. We will keep it a secret for you. That's right, I swear with my dignity. I will never tell anyone about the secret of the shadow cut. Hearing him, Cui Shiming's face darkened. He said ferociously, You are dead. You are definitely dead. Do you really think that I am relying on the shadow cut? Let me tell you, the shadow cut is only one of my tricks. Now I will show you my real power. Crack Jade Claw. Crack. The floor of the second floor was completely broken. 5 claw marks extended all the way to the other side of the second floor. With his clothes fluttering in the air, Yi Chen avoided the range of the claw power by a hair's breadth. His body floated backwards, and when he was about to hit the wall, he kicked his right foot back. Boom! The wall was shattered, and Yi Chen flew towards Cui Shiming like a huge bird, stabbing out with his sword. The amazing sword light condensed into a single point, and even the sound of the wind had disappeared completely, which made people feel like they were going deaf. Cui Shiming roared out, and threw out a claw attack towards the sword edge. Chin! Intense sparks flew out, and the calm air started to boil up, creating circles of transparent patterns, which pushed the two away. Turn of the road. In midair, Yi Chen's body twisted, and he once again dove towards Cui Shiming, stabbing into his shoulder. The tip of the sword came out of his back. At that moment, everyone was stunned as they stared at the scene in front of them. Chapter 52. Swoosh. Pulling out his sword, Yi Chen landed a few meters away and put his sword back into its scabbard. You are not as good as me. I believe you have nothing to say. On the other hand, if I lose to you, my cultivation will definitely be destroyed. I will not kill you now, nor will I destroy your cultivation. If you keep bothering me, don't blame me for being cruel. Plus, I believe that the Emerald Martial Palace will not start a war with the Sky Cloud Martial School, just for an inner disciple like you. You are not qualified yet. Yihai, let's go. All the food was knocked over. Fortunately, the two had almost finished eating. Yihai stared at Yi Chen's back in shock. He knew that Yi Chen was very powerful, but he was still shocked. Defeating a mid-condensing reality realm warrior with 10 attacks, what kind of skill was that? Compared to Yi-chan, all he had learned was blood qi, nothing else. At the top of the stairs, Yi-xian watched the two leave. She could not calm down for a long time. Perhaps, he could really dominate the young generation of the Windy Nation and achieve what even her head disciple could not. After all, he had just reached the condensing reality realm. But he had already defeated Cui Shiming, who was at the mid-condensing reality realm. When he becomes a mid-condensing reality realm warrior, wouldn't he be able to challenge late-condensing reality realm warriors? Damn it, I will not let you go. Cui Shiming yelled, his face looked evil. Yi-xian frowned as she looked at Cui Shiming. Although she still did not like Yi-chan, but compared to Cui Shiming it was clear who was better. At least Yi-chan had one fair and square. Brother Cui, are you alright? Unknowingly, Yi-xian's tone had calmed down a lot. Cui Shiming waved his hand. I was careless this time. The next time we meet I will kill him to vent my anger. You guys listen to me, if anyone dares to leak what happened today, don't blame me for being merciless. Brother Cui, don't worry, we won't say anything. Indeed, this brat must have known the secret of the shadow cut. Otherwise, how could Brother Cui lose to him? Feeling much better, Cui Shiming turned around and looked at Yi-xian. Sister Yi, you are from the Yi family, but I have to kill Yi-chan. I hope you don't get in my way. Yi-xian said lightly, life or death. This is the fate of warriors. Alright. After returning to the Yi family, Yi-chan and Yi-hai parted ways. For the next few days, Yi-chan did not go out and spent all his time cultivating. Although his Zhen-Qi cultivation was much more stable than the warriors who had just reached the condensing reality realm, it was not that easy for him to reach the peak of the early condensing reality realm. He would have to accumulate and purify his Zhen-Qi first, building a solid foundation step by step. Then he would have to increase his cultivation level. In the dark night, the moonlight was like water. On a rockery in the yard, Yi-chan sat cross-legged, holding a low-grade spirit stone in each of his hands, placing them on his knees. His breathing was steady and powerful, and he was gradually extracting yuan qi from the spirit stones. The yuan qi from the spirit stones was much purer than the yuan qi from nature. Because it had been sealed in the spirit stones for a long time, there was a hint of spiritual qi in the spirit stones. It was something even more magical than yuan qi. After being in contact with it for a long time, people would slowly become smarter and feel refreshed, which was very beneficial to the body. As the yuan qi from the spirit stones flowed into his body through the meridians in his arms, the Zhen-Qi whirlpool in Yi-chen's dantian sped up as well. It was like a meat grinder, shredding everything that entered into his body into pieces and reorganizing his Zhen-Qi. Then the Zhen-Qi whirlpool followed the rest of the Zhen-Qi in a big circle, purifying the impurities. 1 circle, 2 circles, 3 circles, 72 circles, 108 circles, 240 circles. Yi-chan only stopped absorbing yuan qi when his meridians and dantian started to hurt, and his body became stiff and numb. He thought to himself, if I could absorb yuan qi endlessly, reaching the peak of the early condensing reality realm wouldn't be a problem. Actually, Yi-chan was too greedy. If other warriors at the same cultivation level knew Yi-chen's thoughts, they would definitely be very jealous and envious of him. It was already very rare for an early condensing reality realm warrior to be able to complete 108 circulations in his or her body. 150 circulations were almost impossible to achieve, not to mention the unbelievable 240 circulations. This was all thanks to Yi-chen's powerful body and soul. His body could hold more yuan qi, and his soul could be better controlled. Both were indispensable. The reason why those talented people could train faster was because their bodies were stronger than ordinary people, and their mental strength was perfect. As for those who had a great comprehension ability, their mental strength was much better than ordinary people, but their bodies were slightly weaker. Of course, this was also because of the low cultivation level of condensing reality realm warriors. Once they reached the clasping yuan realm, they would usually go into closed-door training for months. Sometimes, astral-reaching realm warriors would go into closed-door training for years. Once they came out, they would shock the world and beat all the powerful warriors in the world. Unfortunately, the higher the cultivation level, the harder it was to improve. Closed-door training was for the purpose of accumulating one's essence and removing impurities. The possibility of improving one's cultivation level was very small. If one did not accumulate enough, it would be useless even if he went into closed-door training. Many powerful warriors who could shake the world died in their closed-door training, never to be heard of again. As time went by, people couldn't even remember their names. Putting away the soul stones that still had some yuan qi left, Yichun slowly stood up, and with only a slight movement, he arrived on top of the green water in the yard. Stepping on the water, Yichun's body moved up and down, but did not sink down. This was something that could only be done when one's movement art reached an extremely high level. Now that my Jin Qi has been completely stabilized, it is not realistic to increase it in a short period of time. From tomorrow onwards, I can officially start training the Tyrant Fist. After looking at the moon for a while, Yichun lost interest. He jumped up and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Days passed by. Apart from accumulating innate qi every night, Yichun spent the rest of his time practicing the Tyrant Fist. This fist art was indeed a low-tier Earth Realm martial skill. It had high requirements for the body and Zhan Qi. If the body was not strong enough, the arm would be easily damaged by the force of the Tyrant Fist. If the Zhan Qi was not pure enough, not only would the might of the fist be reduced, it would also cause more damage to the meridians. If it accumulated over a long period of time, it could cause blockages and damage to the qi and blood. In any case, Yichun had already crossed the threshold, and his understanding of the Tyrant Fist was deepening day by day. Finally, it was time to return to the sect. This time, when he went back, he would be able to become an inner disciple and have the right to learn top-rank mortal realm martial skills. He would also have half a year to train on his own, and after that, he would be able to take on missions from the martial institution and travel around the world. It was said that if he was powerful enough, the martial institution would even send him on missions to other countries. However, these kinds of missions were rare in the past few years, since the Windy Nation was already a big country with a lot of missions. Who would have the energy to go to other countries? Not to mention, if they were too far away from the Skycloud Martial School, the danger would increase exponentially. It would be very easy for them to disappear without a trace, which was something that the higher-ups of the Skycloud Martial School did not want to see. Chapter 53. Father, Mother, don't worry, I will take good care of myself. On the main road of Luo City, Yichun led his horse and said to Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing. Shen Yuqing nodded. If you don't have enough money, you can send a letter back, and I will send someone to deliver it to you. It's enough. Plus, there will be a lot of rewards for completing the sect missions. Yichun did not plan to ask for money from his family, as he would not be happy either. Yi Tianhao smiled helplessly. Yuqing, when Chun-Er grows up, he will earn it with his own hands. As his parents, we should not worry about him. Chun-Er, be careful on the road. Okay. Yichun nodded heavily. Then I will go first. You guys take care of yourselves. After saying that, Yichun flipped onto his horse, waved at the two, squeezed his legs on the horse's belly, and galloped away. Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing watched Yichun leave. When they were about to reach the city gate, a rider caught up from behind. Yichun. Yichun turned his head and saw that it was Yi Hai. Where is your teacher? He is waiting for me at the nameless temple 10 miles away from the north gate. As they spoke, the two rode their horses directly out of the north gate, and the guards did not dare to stop them. The nameless temple was in the northeast, while the Skycloud Martial School was in the northwest. The two did not go the same way. Just a little thing for you. Taking out a blue crystal ball from his storage ring, Yi Hai threw it to Yichun. Catching the blue crystal ball, Yichun asked, "What is this?" Yi Hai had already galloped for dozens of meters on his horse. Without turning his head, he said loudly, "I don't know, but it looks pretty. I think you will like it." "Thank you." Yichun shook his head. He brought the blue crystal ball closer to his eyes and studied it carefully. The crystal ball was about the size of a longan. It was completely transparent and contained a blue brilliance. At first glance, one would think that the crystal ball was blue. In addition, the crystal ball was very heavy, even heavier than gold of the same size. It did not seem to be made of crystal. Since he couldn't figure out what it was, Yichun didn't care anymore and put it into his storage ring. After finding the right direction, Yichun gently pulled on the reins and sped away. Different from the cyan-maned horse he rode when he came back, this time Yichun was riding a real dark brown horse. It could travel 2,000 miles a day. It was born with great strength and was very stable. It was worth more than 60,000 silvers. There were less than 20 of them in the whole Yi family. At this moment, the dark brown horse was galloping at full speed. It was as fast as a gust of wind and lightning. The scenery on both sides was very far behind them. 6 days later, Yi-chan appeared at the foot of the windy mountain. After sending the dark brown horse to the horse farm and paying this year's fee, Yi-chan went directly to the inner court disciple assessment site. Today was the day of the inner court disciple assessment. If he missed it, he would have to wait for another week. At the entrance of the assessment site, there were 2 inner court disciples on duty. When they saw Yi-chan walking towards them, the disciple on the left could not help but say, "Today is already the 13th person. It seems that these outer court disciples have obtained a lot of benefits when they went back. Humph, the person in front of me has weak qi. Obviously, he did not cultivate. He should have swallowed a true condensation pill. True condensation pill can help a martial artist to liquefy their qi faster. Unfortunately, the side effects are also very big. There is no possibility of improvement within a year." Walking to the door, Yi-chan said, "I am here to take the inner court disciple assessment. Go in. I hope you can smoothly pass." The inner court disciple said lazily. Yi-chan did not mind it at all as he walked in. The assessment hall was very spacious. On both sides of the hall, there were 9 stone pillars as thick as a water tank. On top of the pillars, there were carvings of dragons and phoenixes. They looked very lifelike. And in the open space in front of him, there was a wooden frame. Under the wooden frame there was a bronze bell. The bronze bell was 3 meters tall. It was dark blue in color and looked very heavy. If Yi-chan guessed it right, this was the first assessment to be promoted to an inner court disciple. Whether it was the Sky Cloud Martial School or other sects, in order to become an inner court disciple one had to go through an assessment. It was not as simple as just reaching the condensing reality realm. After all, there was a big difference between reaching the condensing reality realm and using elixirs to reach the condensing reality realm. The combat power was also not comparable. In order to prevent this from happening, and to ensure that the inner court disciples were elites, the sects had to set up a variety of assessments to ensure that there were no incompetent disciples. The first assessment of the Sky Cloud Martial School's inner court disciple assessment was held in the hall. According to Wu Zongming, the inner court disciple had to punch the bell 10 steps away. If the inner court disciple could not make a sound, then he or she would not be qualified to become an inner court disciple. As for Zhang Haoren and Wu Zongming, they had both reached the condensing reality realm on their own. That was why they could easily become inner court disciples. Are you here for the inner court disciple assessment? Please register your identity here. The examiner handed over a piece of paper and a brush. Yi-chan nodded and wrote down his name and background on the paper. All right, go and line up. At this moment there were 13 people waiting for the assessment. Yi-chan was at the very end of the line. Not long after, the exam elder arrived. Standing at the front, the exam master, who was in his 50s, glanced at the crowd and frowned. What's going on? Why is the inner court disciples' Zhanqi so weak? Did they use medicinal pellets to increase their cultivation? I don't care what your cultivation level is right now. If you can't make the bell ring from 10 steps away, then you will not be qualified to become an inner court disciple. If you want to take the assessment again, you will have to wait for 3 months. Then the exam master took the information from the examiner and said slowly, "The assessment begins. First, Lin Changcheng." From the front of the line, an ordinary-looking teenager walked out. He stopped 10 steps away from the bell, took a deep breath and threw out a palm attack. The sound of the wind was extremely fast. The bell did not move at all. The exam master said lightly, "Failed." Next, Feng Xiaozhong. Hearing the exam master, the teenager named Lin Changcheng's face fell. He walked to the side with his head down. He glanced at the second disciple, hoping that he would also fail. Feng Xiaozhong said to the exam master, "Can I use martial skills?" "Yes." The exam master nodded. Lin Changcheng opened his eyes wide and yelled, "This is not fair. Why didn't anyone tell me I could use martial skills?" The examiner scolded, "How dare you? Don't make any noise in the exam hall. Didn't you ask around before you came?" Lin Changcheng was shocked. He did not dare to say anything. With your zhanqi, even if you use martial skills, you will not pass. Alright, Fang Xiaozhong, start. The exam master did not get angry. Fang Xiaozhong activated his zhanqi. His palm turned into a claw and attacked. Fierce Tiger Claw. Shoo! The green claw light was the size of a wash basin. It landed heavily on the bronze bell. The bronze bell still did not move. Failed. Next, Zhaohu. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the exam hall changed. What is going on? Why is the exam so hard? I can't even use martial skills. Oh no, I don't think I can pass either. The rest of the disciples looked at each other. Only Yi-chan looked calm. Chapter 54. After Fang Xiaozhong, another 3 disciples failed. All of a sudden, the exam master's face darkened. Next, Wang Shuang. Wang Xuemei was about 16 years old. She was not that pretty, but she had a determined look on her face. She responded, walked out of the group, and walked towards the bronze bell step by step. Looking at the girl who just walked out, the exam master's eyes brightened. Although this girl's zhanqi was a little unstable, it was much better than the previous 5. She must have trained herself and had been through a lot of hard work. Let's start. The exam master's voice was filled with anticipation. Wang Xuemei nodded. She held her right palm in front of her chest and threw out a lightning-fast attack. Who? The bronze bell rang once, but because it was so fast, most people did not even hear it. The exam master smiled. Wang Xuemei, pass. Phew. Wang Xuemei let out a breath of relief. She had been a bit arrogant before, thinking that she could easily shake the bell without using any martial skills. She did not expect that it would only shake a little, and even she could not hear it clearly, let alone the others. It seemed like Wang Xuemei had inspired them, for out of the next 7 disciples successfully shook the bell and passed the first test. Next, Yi-chan. Finally, the exam master called out Yi-chan's name. Without giving the others much time to think, Yi-chan casually walked a few steps forward. When he was still quite a distance away from the bronze bell, he threw out a punch in the air. Dong! The bronze bell shook violently, and the sound lingered in the air for a long time. It traveled all the way to the outside of the venue and even traveled miles. The 2 inner disciples at the door were shocked. Who was this? He had just reached the condensing reality realm, and he could already shake the bronze bell and cause such a huge noise. Inside the hall. Did I see it wrong? He was 15 steps away from the bell. No, at least 16 steps. What a monster! Could it be that he had already reached the condensing reality realm and had been hiding all this time? All the disciples who were participating in the test were discussing. All of their attention was on Yi-chan. Yi-chan looked calm. Shaking the bronze bell from a distance was not difficult for him at all. It would be strange if he could not shake it. The exam master paused for a second, then smiled and said, "Good, qualified. To say pass twice in a row, it could be seen how shocked the exam master was. After the first assessment ended, the second assessment officially began, and the disciples who did not pass were asked to leave. At the back of the assessment hall, this was an open-air field about 500 square feet. In the center, there was a 20-meter wide lake. On both sides of the lake, there was a 10-meter-tall wooden bridge. Looking at it as a whole, it looked like a wooden bridge that had been cut off from the middle. It looked extremely strange. The second test is to test your qinggong, and qinggong is particular about the purity of your zhenqi. Now stand on the wooden frame on the right, and jump to the wooden frame on the opposite side to pass the test. Of course, if you grab the wooden frame with your hands, you will also pass." Raising his head, Yi-chan looked around and realized that the distance between the wooden shelves was the same as the width of the lake, which was about 20 feet or 66 meters. A normal mortal realm warrior would feel dizzy just by looking at it, not to mention flying across it. Sure enough, except for Wang Xuemei, the faces of the others turned pale. 20 feet, that's too far. My cloud traversing steps can only allow me to traverse 50 meters in the air at most. I can't go any further. You're lucky you're training the cloud steps, but I'm training the tiger leap art, which can only allow me to jump 30 meters. What about the other 30 meters? Hearing their discussion, Wang Xuemei's mouth curved into a smile. She looked extremely confident. Just as the exam master was about to announce the start of the assessment, A group of inner disciples came out of the exam hall. All of them were talking and laughing. "Why are you guys here?" The exam master was a bit annoyed. "Master, you don't know that there are very few missions at the end of the year. We've been training too hard. We heard that a lot of people are going to be promoted to inner disciple today, so we came to have a look." One of them seemed to be quite familiar with the exam master. He laughed and said, "All right, if you want to have a look, then have a look. But don't disturb their assessment, or I'll kick you out immediately. Don't worry, when have we caused any trouble for you?" The exam master nodded. He cleared his throat and said, "First, Wang Sheng." Hearing him, Wang Shuamei's feet touched the ground. She jumped onto the wooden shelf on the right like a bullet. She took a deep breath, ran a few steps and jumped high into the air like a swallow. 10 meters. 20 meters. 50 meters. 55 meters. When she was 10 meters away from the wooden shelf on the left, Wang Shuamei used up all of her Zhan Qi. Her body started to fall rapidly. She was about to fail. Wind connection art. At that critical moment, Wang Shuamei yelled. Her body once again jumped out of the air and landed on the wooden shelf. An inner disciple said, "To be able to train the wind connection art to this level is already very good. This art allows you to quickly change your Zhan Qi when you use up all of it." Then it was the second disciple's turn. What he practiced was the cloud traversing steps. When he used it, it was as if he was riding on the clouds, extremely graceful and vigorous. However, due to the limitations of his realm, when he was only 5 meters away from the wooden shelf, he fell into the lake, baring his fangs and brandishing his claws, causing a huge splash. The third disciple was even more ridiculous. He only flew for about 30 meters before he fell back down, which made the crowd laugh. The fourth disciple was quite lucky. He managed to move half a meter forward at that critical moment. He grabbed onto the edge of the wooden shelf, his whole body dangling there. The fifth disciple swallowed his saliva. He asked the exam master, "Master, can I step on the water?" "Step on the water?" The exam master looked confused. The wooden shelf was 10 meters high, and jumping on the water was not easy. After all, the water was not like the ground, where one could use it as leverage. "Although there is no such rule, if you can jump on it, I will let you pass." The exam master nodded in agreement. His face lit up. The disciple jumped onto the wooden shelf and jumped into the water. Shoo! 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 Like a dragonfly touching the surface of the water, he stepped on the water at an extremely fast speed. His body was as light as a feather. This must be the floating body art. No wonder he suggested this. But it is not that easy to jump to 10 meters high. A lot of inner disciples saw through the movement art that the disciple was using. They were all curious. They wanted to see how he was going to pass the test. Hey! When he was 5 meters away from the other side of the lake, the disciple's right foot stomped on the water, creating a huge splash. His body shot up into the sky. It is the explosion water spell, no wonder. Yi Qin's eyebrows twitched. He had heard of the explosion water spell. This martial art could condense water in a short period of time, then explode it with Zhen Qi, creating a huge force. If that was the case, he could use the explosive force to push his body and easily jump into the sky. The exam master let out a bitter laugh. Pass. Next, Yi Chen. Chapter 55. All of a sudden, everyone's attention was on Yi Chen because he was the last one. Yi Chen did not feel any pressure. He stretched his body and jumped into the air like a giant bird, lightly landing on the wooden shelf. Just this move alone had shocked all the participating disciples. Let's start. The exam master nodded. Yi Chen's talent was beyond his expectation. In time, he would definitely become one of the top inner disciples. Looking at the wooden shelf 66 meters away, Yi Chen felt that it was so close. When he was at the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10, he could already fly almost 100 meters in the air. Now that he had reached the condensing reality realm, 150 meters was nothing. If he could train a top-rank Mortal Realm art, 200 meters would only be a matter of time. With a slight whistle, Yi Chen took a step forward. His arms were wide open, just like a rock spreading its wings. His clothes fluttered in the wind. He moved very fast. Shoo! After 2 blinks of an eye, Yi Chen landed on the wooden shelf in front of him. The exam master yelled, "Good pass. Brother Huang, this Yi Chen's movement art does not seem to be any weaker than yours." No, in terms of movement art, he is already better than me. My only advantage is that my Zhanqi is slightly higher. TSK, the inner disciples can choose any top-rank mortal realm art. At that time, the only one who could compete with him in movement art would probably be the Flying in the Wind Brother Feng. Comparing him with Brother Feng, you guys are overestimating him. Seeing that the second part of the exam had ended, the inner disciples who were watching the exam started to discuss excitedly, each with their own opinions. The exam master looked at the inner disciples who were in the middle of their discussion with a smile. What? Besides him, don't look down on Zhang Haoran and Wu Zongming, who were promoted to inner disciples a few months ago. Their talents are 1 in a million, 1 in 1,000. That's right. I know that Zhang Haoran half a month ago. He beat Brother Gua, who was famous for his powerful attacks. A lot of people are still talking about him. This guy is arrogant, but he does have what it takes. Soon. It was time for the third test. There was another space behind the open-air field. It was an existence similar to an ancient arena. The center of the field had been dug out, and it looked like a circular swimming pool without any water. On the rock wall at the edge of the field, there were 8 black holes several meters in size, which were sealed with iron gates. The third test is to fight with demonic beasts. Those who can last for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn will pass and officially become an inner disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. The exam master said to the remaining 4 people. The disciple next to Wang Shuamei asked, Elder, may I know what level the demonic beast is? Level 3. Ah, rank 3 demonic beast. The disciple's face turned pale. If his opponent was an early condensing reality realm warrior, he would not be afraid, but a rank 3 demonic beast was different. Compared to human warriors, demonic beasts were born with powerful bodies and fierce auras. Under the same cultivation situation, demonic beasts were undoubtedly more powerful than human warriors. The exam master sneered. You are afraid. The disciple did not say anything. If I am afraid of a rank 3 demonic beast, how can I survive in the martial world in the future? You know, the scariest thing in the martial world is not the demonic beasts, not the powerful warriors, but the human heart. The evil people are 10 times, even 100 times scarier than the demonic beasts. They can kill without spilling blood. The exam master said. Wang Shuamei looked at the disciple with disdain and said, Elder, I am willing to be the first one to take the test. The exam master liked Wang Shuamei quite a bit. He smiled. Since you have just reached the condensing reality realm, of course we will not use the powerful rank 3 demonic beasts. The rank 3 demonic beasts for this test are Iron Claw Demonic Wolf, Leopard Tail Wolf, Blood Pattern Bear, and Black Shelled Cow. Iron Claw Demonic Wolf, Leopard Tail Wolf, Blood Pattern Bear, Black Shelled Cow. It is indeed not that powerful. It is only as powerful as a normal early condensing reality realm warrior. An inner disciple said. Alright, the test starts now. Wang Shuamei, you are the first one. Wang Shuamei jumped down. She looked at the black hole that was sealed by the iron gate. She could feel an evil aura locked onto her. Ready? The exam master walked to the mechanism and asked. Wang Shuamei nodded. Crack. Crack. As the exam master opened the mechanism, the iron gate slowly rose up, revealing the inside of the black hole bit by bit. Oh! Before the iron gate was fully opened, a huge black shadow jumped out of it, carrying a horrifying demonic aura towards Wang Shuamei. Cloak blade art. Wang Shuamei did not panic. She took out 2 short blades from her waist and threw them out in a cross shape, landing on the black shadow's body. Chin. Sparks flew everywhere. The black shadow showed its real body. It was a calf-sized demonic wolf. Its fur was pitch black, and its eyes were red with a hint of green. Its huge mouth was slightly open, revealing its hideous canine teeth. Right then, its front paws were on the blades. It was fighting against Wang Shuamei. Piss off. Infusing her Zhanqi into the short blades, Wang Shuamei yelled in a low voice. Her body suddenly twisted. The blades were spinning like a spinning top. Shoo! The iron claw demonic wolf was extremely agile. It jumped out of the way, then jumped at Wang Shuamei from another angle. It was sly yet cautious, but at the same time, it could not hide its natural brutality. Wang Shuamei seemed to have experience in fighting against rank 3 beasts. She did not panic, nor was she greedy. Basically, she was using the strategy of blocking when the enemy came. The two short blades danced in the air so that not even a drop of water could get through. She protected her body, and from time to time, her blades would collide with the iron-clawed demonic wolf's claws, creating beautiful sparks. One person and one beast were evenly matched. Soon the time it took for an incense stick to burn was up. Wuxia, you have passed the exam. Congratulations on becoming an inner disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. The exam master made a gesture with his right hand, and the iron-clawed demonic wolf was grabbed by an invisible giant hand and sent into the black hole. Then the iron gate was closed, and the wolf could no longer come out. Wiping the sweat off her forehead, Wuxia was a little shocked. This iron-clawed demonic wolf had been locked up for too long, and it was even more ferocious than normal iron-clawed demonic wolves. If she had not been trained like this in her family, she would not have been able to get out alive. Luckily, she had finally made it through. Now she was officially an inner disciple, and was qualified to learn top-rank mortal realm manuals. In the future, she would be able to take on missions from the school, and travel around the world like the other inner disciples, making a name for herself. The next one to take the exam was the male disciple who did not perform well before. His opponent was the leopard tail wolf, which was famous for its speed and brutality. Within 10 breaths, the male disciple had been scratched by the leopard tail wolf and fell to the ground. At that critical moment, the exam master had saved him, but it also meant that he had lost the chance to become an inner disciple. If he wanted to take the exam again, he would have to wait for another 3 months. Then, it was the disciple who had passed the second exam with the exploding water spell. Although his flying art was not as good as the others, his attacking power was not bad. The blood pattern bear, which was not very agile, obviously could not hurt him at all. Instead, it was hit a couple of times, but of course it did not care at all. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the second inner disciple was born. Yi-chan, it's your turn. The exam master was not worried about Yi-chan anymore. The only thing he was worried about was whether or not he could beat the beast, or if he could survive the time it took for an incense stick to burn like the previous two. Yi-chan did not know what the exam master was thinking, so he jumped into the air and jumped down quickly. Chapter 56. The Iron Gate opened, and a majestic shadow with an extremely oppressive aura walked out. Moo! The black shadow roared into the sky. It was a demonic bull covered in black armor, with 2 horns that looked like sharp blades. The demonic bull was 2.5 meters tall, its eyes were as big as bells, and its nose was blowing out a whirlwind like air. Its hooves had sharp claws that were curved like blades, shining with a cold light. The black shell bull is the most powerful beast among the 3. It was born with great strength, and its defense is extremely high. It will be very hard to beat it. I think it can only last for another 30 minutes. Obviously, the crowd did not think that Yi-chan could beat the black shell bull. After all, even some of the inner disciples could not break through the black shell bull's defense in a short time. Not to mention Yi-chan, who had just reached the condensing reality realm. Different from the iron-clawed demonic wolf and the blood pattern bear, the black shell bull did not attack immediately. It kept its right hooves on the ground and stared at Yi-chan with its bell-sized eyes. It lowered its body slightly. Tat 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 tat. After charging up, the black shell bull's body suddenly emitted a dark gray demonic chi. The dense demonic chi covered it completely, only revealing its 2 bloody red eyes. Then it started to move its hooves, and with a horrifying pressure, it charged towards Yi-chan, trying to kill him with one hit. At this moment, Yi-chan moved. The muscles on his right arm swelled, and he clenched his fist, pointing it forward. When the black shell bull was only half a meter away from him, Yi-chan let out a low growl and punched through the demonic chi, landing heavily on the black shell bull's forehead. Boom! The hard rock ground cracked open, and the black shell bull's huge body was suddenly pressed into the ground. It was bleeding from every orifice, and its limbs were twitching, killing the black shell bull with one punch. Gasp! The inner disciples who were watching the battle gasped. They were shocked. Wuxia murmured, "How can there be such a freak?" After a while, the exam master praised him. "Well done. With your potential and talent, it will not be hard for you to make a name for yourself in the future. You might even be able to compete with the geniuses from other martial institutions, and bring glory to our Sky Cloud Martial School." Yi Chen's face did not turn red, nor was he out of breath. Just now, he had only used 70 to 80% of his strength. It could not be said to be strenuous. Hearing this, he said, "Elder, you flatter me. It doesn't matter if you've won or not. Everything depends on your own hard work. Otherwise, no matter how talented you are, your achievements will be limited. In the past 20 years, I've seen many unknown disciples soar to the skies, and I've also seen many talented disciples slowly fall. I hope you're not the next one." The exam master did not know how many times he had placed his hopes on Yi Chen, but unfortunately in the end, only a few people were able to fulfill his expectations. However, Yi Chen was one of the people he had high hopes for, and he sincerely hoped that he could grow up and take charge of his own affairs. Alright, now that the inner court disciple assessment is over, the three of you follow me to collect your inner court disciple waste tokens, clothing and other things. The rest of you are dismissed. In the side hall of the examination hall, according to your body shape, each of you can pick 3 sets of inner court disciple robes. In the future, if any of them are torn, you can come here to change them. The exam master opened one of the rows of cabinets and said to Yi Chen and the other 2. Yi Chen fixed his eyes on the cabinet. It was huge, divided into 12 compartments, and in each compartment, there were 10 sets of white robes. All of them were of different sizes, and the sizes were marked on the outside. The 3 of them were very familiar with their own sizes, so they quickly picked out their robes. Then the exam master brought the 3 of them to the armory, and let them pick out the weapons they liked. Yi Chen picked out a 4-feet-long greatsword, named Hidden Cloud. It was as famous as the colorful snow blade from the North Snow Martial Academy, and the crystal sword from the Emerald Martial Palace. They were all extremely powerful weapons. Wang Xuemei picked out 2 dark purple short knives, named Purple Deer. The other disciple was not good with weapons, so he randomly picked out a dagger that could cut through iron like it was mud. At this moment, the exam master took out 3 dark blue colored tags from the box next to him. They looked like they were made of wood or iron, and seemed to be a bit heavy. Remember, you can't just throw away an inner court disciple tag. It represents your identity, and it is also the proof of your training in the outside world. When you are in danger, you can show the tag and it might be able to save you. On the other hand, if you lose the tag and get killed, the Sky Cloud Martial School won't be able to handle it. You have to remember this. The exam master warned. Yes, the 3 of them nodded. Picking up a tag, the exam master concentrated his power on his fingers and started writing on the back of the tag. His Zhenqi rubbed against the tag, and a light cyan smoke came out. After writing on the first tag, the exam master picked up the second one. Soon all 3 tags had been written with names, so it was useless for others to take them. Taking over the tag, Yi Chen subconsciously used 60% of his power, trying to test the tag's toughness. The result was out of his expectation. There was no mark on the tag at all. Yi Chen did not believe it. He combined all of his Zhenqi with his strong power and poured it into his fingertips, and pressed on the tag. Sizzle! A thin layer of white smoke came out, but the tag was still undamaged. Releasing his Zhenqi, Yi Chen couldn't help but admire the exam master's profound cultivation. He was able to write the names of the 3 of them on the tag so easily. If that finger had landed on his body, it would definitely have pierced a bloody hole. Now come with me to the ranking Jade Wall. That is the place every inner court disciple has to go to. The ranking Jade Wall? The 3 of them had heard of this place, but they had never been there. The palace in the middle of the mountain was called the Floating Cloud Palace. It was the place where the inner court disciples could take on missions. Outside of the palace was a huge square that was paved with white marble. On the side of the square, there was a jade wall that was 1 meter tall and 1 meter wide. It was completely white with a hint of cyan, and there were many wooden tags hanging on it. Right now, there were a lot of inner court disciples standing under the jade wall. They all raised their heads to look at the positions of the wooden tags and the names on them. Zhang Haoran actually climbed up another 10 places. He's now at 285th place. That Wu Zongming is not bad either. He is now 333rd. The most impressive one is still senior sister Su Jing. She jumped from 23rd to 8th among the core disciples, and finally made it to the top of the jade wall. While everyone was talking, Yi Chen and the other 2 followed the exam master to the jade wall. Greetings, Elder Tang. Are these 3 newly promoted inner court disciples? Although the exam master was only an outer court master, He was very powerful, even more powerful than the inner court masters. On top of that, he was a kind and friendly person, and was highly respected and loved by everyone. The exam master nodded and said with a smile, "You guys have to work hard. Some of them have great potential. I think they are not below the top 400. We are working hard every day, don't worry, Elder Tang." Yichun didn't care about the others' conversation. He just carefully observed the huge jade wall. On the surface of the jade wall, there were many wooden tags, roughly divided into 29 rows. Each row could hold up to 20 tags, with different names written on them. Among them, Wu Zongming and Zhang Haoren were in the list. They were the third on the 17th row, and the 15th on the 14th row. The first and second rows were the wooden tags of the core disciples. They were bright red in color, bright and eye-catching, above everyone else. The third row was for the top 10 inner court disciples. Their wooden tags were light red, which meant that they had the ability to become a core disciple and replace the position of the core disciples. The fourth row was for the inner court disciples with the most number of people. Their wooden tags were dark cyan, similar to the inner court disciples' tags.